They say our country's creativity starts at the coast and works its way inward. I'd like to tell a different story. I'd argue that the heart of our nation is at its center. And when you feel its pulse, what you really feel is the beat just below the surface, underground, where it's not a level of popularity that you're after, it's a level of connection. That beat is the true creative energy inside you. It's not enough to contain it. You have to let it out. You have to share it. Art leads into everything we do, inspiring innovation, collaboration, flavor, growth, and community. As a brewer, I'm one of those artists, inspired and hopefully inspiring. Here in Denver, we play by our own rules and to our own beat, a beat that will be felt coast to coast. These are the musicians at the heart of our scene. Josh Dillard's sound adds a true sense of timelessness to the Denver music scene. His profound lyrics and beautiful arrangements bring to mind a simpler time, perhaps when music was just a bit more pure and sweet. Josh's refreshing simplicity takes root in those who have gone before, but his music breaks a branch from their lineage and takes it in a new direction. Is it possible that to be forward-thinking, we first need to look back? Many brewers take an old recipe and add a new twist. This isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but if done without knowing why or without the appreciation for the original, it's disingenuous and insincere. Only when we take the time to truly discover what makes something classic are we afforded the opportunity to make our mark.
It's great. It's great to be a part of the Denver music scene, and we're really happy here. I've kind of been playing with a rotating cast of musicians in the Denver area for the last few years, all of whom play in other bands. So, there's guys from Holy Fear and Mouthful of Thunder and Two-Tone Wolfpack, and now Sunboy, musicians from a lot of great bands that have kind of participated in that. So, kind of as more an individualistic songwriter, it's been nice to just be able to ask friends to play with me, and that's kind of how the Streaks of Lightning came about.
Or have you done a lot of the stuff yourself, or what's that process look like?
Yeah, it's been like a rotating cast of friends, but it's primarily been between myself and my cousin.
That's
and
cool.
So we grew up, as I mentioned, playing music together. We listened to all the old stuff together, classic music and early rock and roll and early R&B. And so we kind of always just really understood each other and the sound that we wanted. So we've always worked together. I would have to say most of the influence musically for me comes from a lot of older music, And I think, we have to really understand and be well acquainted with the past. It's just my personal perspective, in order to shape and influence the future in terms of our art. And so I'm still trying to go back to older music, and I'm still trying to rediscover and discover older artists. People like Sister Rosetta Tharpe or Washington Phillips, these people who were early songwriters, incredible musicians, and really influential in everything that we do and know now musically. And so, I don't know, I felt really challenged in terms of, can you call yourself a folk artist if you've never even listened to a Woody Guthrie album? Or Leadbelly? Those people defined folk music, and Dylan talks a lot about that in kind of a critical way of, you got to go back to the songs. You got to go way back before you start calling yourself a folk artist. So, all that to say, I think I'm still trying to go back to older forms of music, and that's continuously influencing me.
A man's troubles, they never seem to roll away. That howling waste of the wilderness, the storms that keep my soul at bay. And when you ask me why, I never seem to cry. I have a heart of stone, I'm a bag of bones. When the full blaze of your heart has finally come and has shown none of our troubles, every one of them, they will vanish like a mist. They will vanish like a mist. They will vanish like a mist before the rising sun. If I walked 1,000 miles, if I cried 1,000 tears, if I crossed the deepest valley, it wouldn't make them disappear. No. Like a wave upon the shore, like the grain upon the floor, I shall slowly dissipate, shall separate. When the full blaze of your heart has finally come and has shown none of our trouble, every one of them, they will vanish like a mist. They will vanish like a mist. They will vanish like a mist before the rising sun. Thank you. Josh Dillard and the Streaks of Lightning. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. This next one's called Let 'Em Fall. Like a doe laid hands under a lonely street light, like a wheel I can't see through the cracks in the wall. And I fear this whole thing ain't never gonna crumble and fall. Stone by stone, so with my selfish pride. Yeah, all these years of doubt and distrust have forced a great divide. Let them fall quick, let them fall slow. Yeah, let all of them go. Let them fall like they did back in the days of Jericho. Like that strong Peter cold coming on the tails of the wind. Like that endless ocean, the tide that comes in. Like my sweet mother's voice singing them old gospel hymns. I call out to you late. I call out to you this very I can't see through the cracks in the wall. And I fear this whole thing ain't never gonna crumble and fall. Stone by stone, so with my selfish pride. All these years of doubt and distrust have forced a great divide. Yeah, all these years of doubt and distrust have forced a great divide. So let them fall quick, let them fall slow. Yeah, let all of them go. Let them fall like they did back in the days of Jericho. That just came out of a response of a harder time in life and trying to process the idea of growing as a person. But it was interesting. My friend turned me on to this quote by Flannery O'Connor with one of her short stories. A lot of people were trying to figure out what it means, and she kept getting letter after letter, like explain the short story. And she's kind of famous for saying, if I could tell you what it meant, I wouldn't have had to write the short story. And that really resonates with me because I think part of the creative process for me is certainly cathartic. It's a way to help voice and articulate things that the mind or the soul or the heart doesn't know how to. And all of that process is really mysterious anyways, You talk to guys or, interviews like that I've read with Dylan or, Paul Simon or a lot of other great writers. And a lot of them, they have this, there's a theme there that there's a mystery to the creative process, that it just comes.
Yeah.
And so I think in light of that, and in light of that Flannery O'Connor quote, it's not something I can always define or describe what a song means, but that's why the song was written. It's to help me figure it out. And however it means to somebody else, you know, and what their take is, that's important to them.
That's fine too, yeah.
Since you've been gone, I've been shaking in my boots. Mama, you read on my heart. I got nothing left to lose without you. So if you wait for me, darling, I will promise you I will wait for you too. Now listen, the little acorn never falls far from its tree. The same is true with my love for you, as it escaped me. If you think you left and don't think again, 'cause I need you, woman, I need you, I need you, I need you. Ever since you've been gone, I've been shaking in my boots. Mama, you know you read on my heart. I got nothing left to lose without you. So if you wait for me, darling, I will promise you I will wait for you too. Now listen, the heavy hammer strikes to make one usable. And they say a man is made when he enters a crucible. The white hot heat of your hand, it's unspeakable. Jane Mellor, days before you grew. Ever since you've been gone, I've been shaking in my boots. Mama, you read on my heart. I got nothing left to lose without you. So if you wait for me, darling, I will promise you I will wait for you too. I will wait for you too.
When I was in New York City a few years ago, just kind of wandering through the Met and looking at some really inspiring works by people like Van Gogh and Winslow Homer. But yeah, I mean, I've been listening to a lot more older R&B, and I think a lot of times when you're ruminating on something like that or that type of genre of music, things can just kind of percolate, rise to the top.
Next song that I just really love, this one, There's Been Blood.
Yeah.
It's such a neat song, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Really fantastic.
Yeah.
I mentioned that one line that I really loved is, this is about preventing the past from defining what we stand on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty deep song in terms of emotional involvement for me. But I think it just kind of, the song revolves around the idea of the past, knowing where you've come from, particularly like when you think about family and generations upon generations that shape who you are as a person, you know? And I think I've had to be honest. I think a lot of us have to be honest where we come from, the hard things that we've experienced. And so yeah, that song and that lyric that you quoted revolves around that idea of, you know, there's a lot of stuff that is reproduced generation after generation. It comes to a point where people have to make a choice, make a sacrifice to face those things and to shift the direction or change the path of the course in which they're walking. It's kind of a calling out to processing that type of idea. Even if it's processing the failures of not doing so, processing the idea of the intention of wanting to change, or even processing with another person to be honest with where we're at and how those things have influenced us, you know, instead of just pretending that everything's fine or pretending that the past hasn't influenced the decisions or the choices we make, you know? And if we're honest, I think we look at the problems of society, oppression, racism, even smaller things like pride and selfishness. A lot of those things are passed on, they're cultivated in family lines, you know.
You ain't always been this way. 10 years of hard work thrown out in a day. You turned on a dime, you threw it all away. Now what you got to show and tell? Just what you wanted for yourself. This ain't a battle of what's right and what's wrong. This is about preventing the past from defining what we stand on. 'Cause there's casualties laying everywhere. There's a body in a bag. I don't want to have to look at that. I don't want to have to look at that. There's been blood, there's been sweat, there's been tears. There's been plenty of years. But I'm tired of going around again. Well, I love you, but I don't want to go through this again. Yeah, I love you, but I don't want to go through this again. There's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is destruction laid bare, its foolish plan. So heed this advice, and in the end you may be wise. Two masters no one can serve. If you keep your life, what will you preserve? If you keep your life, what will you preserve? 'Cause there's been blood, there's been sweat, there's been tears. There's been plenty here. But I'm tired of going around again. Well, I love you, but I don't want to go through this again. There's been blood, there's been sweat, there's been tears. There's been plenty years. But I'm tired of going around again. Well, I love you, but I don't want to go through this again. Yeah, I love you, but I don't want to go through this again.
Josh Dillard's deep knowledge of history informs his every move, stirring a whirlwind of contemplation in everyone who gets to hear him speak. He embraces the past, especially certain artists who have created the unwritten rules of the business. In this, he reminds us that we should be well acquainted with what came before us before we set off to create something new. In the movie 180 Degrees South, Yvon Chouinard says, the answer for a lot of the world's problems might be to turn around and take a forward step. As we race along in the sake of progression and in pursuit of the next great thing, occasionally we could benefit from reflecting on where we've been and what we know.
My guitar that I play is from my dad. That's a torch that's being passed.
The idea of a folklore center is that it's not just a store to sell you an instrument. We have lots of books and lots of CDs that give you some background into what this music is all about, and we really like that. And our teachers offer a wide variety of lessons. Denver Folklore Center. Community connection, an acoustic music shop.